Hi everybody, my name is Courtney and I'm not a blogger or anything, but I felt very compelled to tell my story and tell my testimony on probably the biggest life-changing event that has ever happened in my life. On October 11th, 2018, I had a craniotomy. A craniotomy means that a surgeon cut into my skull and had to go into my brain because of a cavernous malformation. Rewind. I initially, in January of 2018, I went in to see an ophthalmologist because I was putting on eyeliner one morning. And ladies, you close one eye and you're putting on your eyeliner. And as I was looking out of my left eye, it was completely blurry. And I'm not a person I don't wear glasses. I've always had 20/20 vision. I've always been extremely healthy. I've never really been sick. I've never been admitted to one hospital. Nothing to that effect. And so, that kind of alarmed me when it was so blurry. Now, when I was looking out of both eyes, there was no difference. And that has to do with the way that the brain works. But when I closed the one eye and was looking out the left eye, it was completely blurry. So then, of course, I tried my right eye, and that looking out just out of my right eye was okay. But nonetheless, I made an appointment with an ophthalmologist to get my eyes checked to kind of see what was going on. And the physician initially diagnosed me with having a lazy eye. And my eye was not drooping to any magnitude. She diagnosed me with having a lazy eye, tried to give me some glasses, a prescription for some glasses. And as she's fitting me for these glasses, I'm just kind of feeling like this is not right. The glasses weren't even really helping me at all. And this is just something's not right. And so that's, kind of one of my points is always go with your gut. I didn't feel right. She prescribed me those glasses. She gave me some things to do to strengthen my eye muscles. She told me, to get an eye patch for my opposite eye so that the eye that was weaker could start to get stronger. And all of these suggestions and on and on. So, I took that and a couple of months go by and I'm like, this is getting worse. At this time, I am starting to my eyes are very sensitive when I'm on the computer. I work on a computer, for my job, and my eyes are very, very sensitive. And I remember asking my boss if the company could provide a screen for my computer because my eyes were just becoming very sensitive to the computer screen. And I even I told my best friend, and she told me about these glasses that you can wear and that can also help with the computer screen to filter the rays. And so I was like, okay, kind of try that. I also started noticing that when I went to the gym to work out, I could barely keep my eyes open because I was so uncomfortable. The lights and everything were just so almost blinding to me. And so I'm noticing that, these so-called glasses, which I never used, and trying to strengthen my eye muscle, that's not working. And in my gut, I'm like, this is not, something else is going on. And so I also started having huge problems with my peripheral vision. And so just looking out, the sides of my eyes, which is very important when driving. And so I started noticing that that was also a little off. I was actually driving one day with a friend of mine who was in town for a concert, and she said, I'm driving, and she says, oh my gosh. She was like, do you not see these cars? What is going on? And that was kind of a wake-up call for me, because, driving by yourself, I'm single, I don't have any kids. So most of the time I'm driving by myself, I didn't realize how bad it had gotten. And so she, was like, your driving is horrible. But it really was because I couldn't see, and I didn't realize how bad it was. My peripheral vision was the most that was severely compromised. And so those were a lot of the symptoms that I was having. So I went to get a second opinion and at another ophthalmologist, and immediately he kept doing tests and making me do field tests and having me look through prisms and everything under the sun. I mean, I was probably there for 2.5 hours with him. And, I finally just kind of said to him, I know something is wrong. Just tell me what you think it is. It's, I know in my gut that something is wrong. Even before I went to that appointment, I'm a very religious person, and I just felt God telling me, this is big, and you're going into this appointment, but this is big, and so don't be shocked when you get this diagnosis, because this is big. And so at the ophthalmologist, he finally kind of said, either you have MS or you have a brain tumor. And I'm in the health field, and so I knew that I didn't have MS. I'm pretty familiar with those symptoms and kind of what that looks like. And like I said, I've been 100% healthy all of my life. And so that's when I kind of was like, okay, I have a brain tumor. And so he said, you need to speak with a specialist. And that was a neuro-ophthalmologist, which that is basically an eye doctor that specializes in the nerves that are connected to the eyes in the brain. And which I had never heard of. Even being in the health field, I had never heard of this specialty. And so I said, okay, and he had someone that he recommended me to. He also told me that I needed to stop driving immediately, especially at night, but that I needed to stop driving immediately. And so I did. Well, I drove home from that appointment, but I drove home from that appointment, and as this was going on, with these symptoms, I had kind of kept my boss updated because I knew that this was something major. And so I called her on the ride home and basically told her, because up until this point, I'm still working 100%. But I also can't even see the mouse on my computer screen. I can see the computer screen, but in order to find my mouse, I'm having to find the mouse pointer on the screen. I'm having to shake the mouse repeatedly so I can find it. So I'm able to work, but it has become difficult. And so I told my boss, what the doctor had said. And, I know this is major. I don't know when I'll have to go out, but I know that it'll be soon. And so I made the appointment with the specialist, which was a week later, the longest week ever, and went to see the specialist. And of course, she puts me through even more tests, peripheral tests, just every single test under the sun. And she tells me that I need to get an MRI. That's the only thing that will confirm whether or not I do have a brain tumor. And so, I said, okay. So she schedules me for an MRI. My MRI was the following week. So I go to get an MRI of the brain. And if you've never had an MRI of the brain, it is an experience. And I wish someone had told me or prepared me, because you are literally, with the MRI, you have to be very still. The MRI machine is extremely loud. You're laying down, and they have to put essentially like a cage over your face from here up. And, it comes to where it's this close to your face. And you're in there for almost an hour like that. And so the MRI machine is banging, and this contraption is right here next to your face, but you also have to be still. And so I just was not prepared. It was very nerve-wracking. When they first put the cage over my face, I had to tell her to take it off. I need a minute. And so basically at this point, I'm waiting for the specialist to call me back with my results. They called me maybe 4 days later. And she said, I'm giving you the number to a neurosurgeon. She was just like, it does look like there's a mass in your brain. And, the nurse and the neurosurgeon comes in, and he pulls up my MRI scans. And this is a scan of my brain, which is amazing in itself, but he pulls up a scan of my brain, and, he starts, maneuvering the scan around, and then he's at an angle where he shows the mass. And I literally lost my breath. Your only option is surgery. That's it. That's it. That's your only option. He was like, that's the first step. He was like, and depending on the results from that, he was like, the treatment may vary, but at this point you need surgery. And so I'm like, okay. He said, there's hope. All is not lost. And so I said, okay. And so he says, he looks at his PA, and, she's looking on the calendar basically to look for a date to schedule my surgery. And he says, we have an opening. He's like, it'll be 3 weeks from now. And, because these surgeries are very intense, they're long, they're usually 12 to 16 hours. So a neurosurgeon doesn't operate every day. I believe mine operated twice a week. And so he said he had an opening in 3 weeks. Well, my mother, and I kind of took that. I'm like, I'm just grateful that you can do this surgery. My mother said, "You can't do that any sooner." 3 weeks. And he kind of was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Well, we'll look at the calendar. We'll see if we can make some adjustments and whatnot." And I hadn't even thought to ask if they could move my surgery up, because as I said, I'm a very religious person, and so just by the grace of God, he had instilled just a calmness in me, and just a peace, because he made me realize that this is completely out of my control. There's absolutely nothing that I could have done to prevent this. This is nothing that I can do to change. It is completely outside of my control. This office, and they said, "We put you on the schedule for next Thursday." That was a Friday. "We'll put you on the schedule for next Thursday." And I was like, wow. I was like, okay. And they said, "Right now we're scheduling you for all of your labs, CT scans, all of this workup that you have to do in order to be operated on." And so all of those appointments basically were made for me for that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I had to go. I went on a disability immediately that day, starting that day. And all of those appointments were made for me. And so at this time, I also need to notify, my friends, my close friends and family, my grandmothers, and because at this point, only a few people knew what I had kind of been going through. And so my best friend, we have a lot of the same friends, and so she's like, "Is there anything I can do?" And I told her, "I just need you to call our friends and just let them know that I'm having surgery, because this is not something you want to send on a text or an email, but I didn't have the strength to call all those people and tell them that." And so people that I'm just blessed to have in my life, my brother and I are extremely close. And so with him being a physician, I told him that you need to be in Houston, Texas. He doesn't live here locally. I said, "You need to be here for the entire length of my hospital stay." And he's like, "Well, I'm trying to get relief from work because they've already put the schedule." I was like, "Okay." I was like, "But you need to be here for the entire length of my hospital stay." And I was very adamant about that, because when you're in the hospital, you need someone to be your advocate. And if you don't have someone close to you who's maybe in the health field, that's okay. But you need someone to be your advocate. You need someone to ask questions on your behalf and ask them what's going on, talking to the nurses, talking to the doctors. What is this medication that she's getting? What, when, and why? And you have to have that. You want someone, who's going to be paying close attention to you and making sure that you're getting the best care possible. It is extremely important. Like I said, I had never had surgery before, never. and went in for surgery, that morning. My brother, my parents were there. And I mean, I'm still here. And, I think the surgery was about 12 hours or so. I will do a part 2 that goes into ad length post surgery. I want to conclude by saying that, the biggest things for me, if I had to relay anything to someone who's maybe going through this or knows someone going through this, friend or family, the biggest things that I learned were, even if you have perfect vision, you need to get your eyes checked regularly, meaning once or twice a year. That was the diagnostic to determining what was going on with me. I probably hadn't had my eyes checked in, I don't know, probably at least 10 years, because I had 20/20 vision, so I didn't feel the need, as bad as that sounds from a healthcare professional. But so even if your vision is clear, you still need to get your eyes checked. The second thing that I would, like to reiterate is that it's very important that you have someone who, can speak to your behalf, especially when you're in the hospital. Even if you're at your appointments, even when you're at your appointments, don't be afraid to ask questions in your doctor's visits. If there's something in your gut telling you that this is not right, or you don't feel comfortable, or you want to get a second opinion, you need to voice those concerns. The line of communication between the patient and the doctor is so important. Don't be afraid to speak up. This is the first part of this story that I wanted to kind of convey. I say story, it's my life, but going through that process. And I hope that you tune in for part 2. Bye.